This is Helga Gilbert, and this lecture is entitled Families and Larger Systems. I'd like to present some ideas put forward in a book titled Families and Larger Systems: The Impact of Institutions, Organizations, and Agencies on the Family. It was written by Evan Imber Black. The publisher is the Guilford Press, 1988. Oh, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong subtitle. Families and Larger Systems, A Family Therapist's Guide Through the Labyrinth. I guess I created my own subtitle for it on the first slide. I think this book has a lot of relevancy to the work we do as rehab counselors, because we do often see individuals who are also working with one or more agencies or institutions or medical or mental health professionals. It's important to view the individual as someone who exists as part of a family, who views themselves as part of a family. And it's important to view the family as individuals who are all impacted by a relationship of one or more members with any outside agency, outside system. There's no question that understanding the big picture about an individual helps us, and that's us people in the helping professions, helps us understand how to progress with case management, how to progress with making vocational decisions, independent living decisions, etc. So we've read about and we've discussed the concept of the systems perspective in family therapy. This is understanding that an individual exerts influence within a system, the family, and is also influenced by the system. When there's dysfunction in the family, there's going to be dysfunction in the individual. When there's dysfunction in the individual, there's going to be dysfunction in the family. We discuss the impact of culture, community, country, and world on the individual and family. Today, we're going to focus on the influence exerted by public institutions and social service agencies. This would then be the total context in which the family operates. It's amazing when you consider that a consumer walking through your door for the first time may already be working with psychiatrists, medical specialists for their disability, maybe the Veterans Administration, or if you're working with transition students, they could be working with school staff, maybe a residential treatment staff, or organizations like mental health, mental retardation, Medicare, child welfare, prison system. These are considered the larger systems within which the family moves and interacts. As vocational rehab counselors, we don't necessarily delve into the consumer's feelings toward these helpers at an intake interview, nor would it be immediately obvious what sort of relationship exists between the individual, the family, and these outside agencies. But I'm sure more than one of you has attended meetings with representatives of one or two other agencies and seen very interesting dynamics at work. We'll talk about the dynamics that can occur between families and these larger systems next. Individuals like us, counselors who work with individuals and sometimes families, can be much more effective when we consider the questions like those on this slide. These are tough questions if answered honestly. Take the first question. How do I and the agency I work for impact this family? Some social service agencies have requirements that almost seem to penalize their customers. I'm reminded of a teen mother in Texas who wasn't allowed to have the father of her child living in her apartment, or funding would be removed. Getting married would also result in the loss of housing for her and her baby. Only single teens could qualify. In contrast, the mentoring program that I was volunteering for at the time focused on inviting and involving the fathers in the parenting classes, involving the grandparents in dinners, in outings, etc. This little mentoring program saw the power in strengthening the bond between mother and father and grandparent, not creating rules that make lying or being secretive a necessity. Sometimes a larger system develops a kind of unspoken culture in the way they think about and treat their consumers. Sometimes a helper feels that the individuals who come to their office are incapable of living a decent life without their intervention. The helper wants to swoop in and tell the family exactly how things should go from now on. The helper's not a partner to the family members. Rather, she's an exalted expert with a capital E. Her decision should be followed, not second-guessed. She's done this before, and she knows how it goes. What about that final question? Do my expectations about the families I work with impact their outcome? Have you ever been guilty of thinking, oh, this individual is going to be a consumer of ours forever? Or, there's no way this person's really going to be a success. This case is hopeless. Do you think these expectations have an impact in the way that you then work with a consumer and their family? Do you think an expectation like this might make you less willing to try a novel approach? We know it's better to assume the best for everyone, but realistically, don't we have negative thoughts that creep in? By remaining open and honest with ourselves, we can notice these thoughts and deal with them and dismiss them rather than having them pervade our behaviors as a counselor. We must now begin to view the agencies we work for from the perspective of the family. If we can do this, then we can understand how to help. Help instead of perpetuating misunderstanding, poor communication, distrust, and anger and frustration. So from their perspective, the family's perspective, everyone's an outsider and a potential threat to the cohesion of this family that we're trying to hold together. A family's going to judge if helpers are good helpers or bad helpers. It's just going to happen. A family who's had ongoing experience with an agency and perhaps been assigned to a constant changing flow of caseworkers is in a pretty good position to start making judgments. Sometimes family members are split over their view of who should be trusted and believed and who should not be. Sometimes agencies find themselves pitted against one another. Dysfunctional patterns that emerge among the family members are duplicated in that family's relationship with outside helpers. Just as members within families form alliances with one another against another member, so too can family members form alliances with a helper. The author writes on page 65, a family in which parents are split and form triangles with children as allies may form similar triangles with multiple helpers as allies, such that each parent has an alliance with one or more helpers. Dynamics from the perspective of the helpers. Helpers may work differently with a family that they judge to be good versus bad. A good family is one that's seen as compliant. A bad family is one which seems to be non-compliant. Maybe they're missing appointments, causing disputes, raising issues about agency policy. More issues to think about from this larger systems and family viewpoint. Who's defining the problem as a problem? Has the family entered into a relationship with the agency because someone else felt they needed the referral? Has a well-meaning voc rehab counselor made a referral to a family therapist when she sees issues that need addressing, but the family doesn't recognize these issues? Or perhaps the mother sees a problem with her child. Perhaps she fears the child has hyperactivity, but the father disagrees. How does the family view its involvement with a particular agency? Are they embarrassed? Are they embarrassed to be working with a mental state hospital? Do they feel frightened that their family member has led them to a relationship with a psychiatrist or a counselor or a therapist or a special ed teacher? Gotten them involved with the staff at the school? I'm not really sure people have a preconceived notion about voc rehab, so that probably works in our favor. But again, it's important to know why the family has appeared for treatment, who thinks the problem is a problem, and what their view of being there is. The book talks about how you could do an informal assessment from this family larger systems perspective. And the purpose of assessment is so that you can really get a handle on this family's feelings about being involved with other agencies and how the course of their relationships is going. Because your relationship with them and your agency's relationship with that family could be completely jeopardized, a waste of time, if you don't first understand where they're coming from. You might also gain a lot of insight into how they deal with outside forces. Maybe they deal the same way with all the agencies that are involved in their lives, and all of that is negative, or all of that is positive. So anyway, let's talk about the purpose of assessment. The first one is determine whether they're new to this whole larger system world, or is it a multi-generational involvement? Not new at all, just part of the way of life that they would be involved with the prison system, the school system. Is it ongoing, or do you see it as being a short-term involvement? Once you understand this, determine where to start. Find a different approach. Don't start right in on the family and their problem. Focus instead on the relationship that they have with the other helpers in their lives. This leads into number 3, create a new and unanticipated relationship. You're already going to shock the family by even being interested in how it's going with the psychiatrist they've been sent to see, how it's going with the job, with that agency that's helping them get the job, with the tutoring services that the school is making their child attend. How are they feeling about that? This already sets you up to have a very different relationship with them. You are already looking like someone who is their partner, not someone who is yet another talking head behind a desk. Because you're actually interested in how all these pieces can fit together. And actually, that's the only way you're ever going to figure out how all these pieces fit together. So start with no preconceived notions. A completely fresh start. If a referral comes from another system, be sure not to automatically align yourself with this other system. Yours is a new relationship. And the fourth one, maintain working relationships with the other larger systems. See your role as someone who can mediate between systems. Try to get rid of feelings that agencies might have about each other, or that your client, your consumer has. Reduce the good guy and the bad guy feelings. So what position should you take as a counselor working through these layers and layers of other systems involved in the family's lives and the family cohesion itself? The book recommends starting with a position of neutrality, but moving out of that as you gain their confidence and you get more involved in the case. So often families have become disempowered in their feelings with these larger systems. They have lost confidence in their own abilities to know what is best. They've given up their power to these more knowing experts, or they've been forced to participate in a relationship with a larger system or risk losing benefits or services. They've been asked to share private situations, be available for meetings, follow through with treatments, complete these tasks, go to these therapies. At the end of the day, it's important that the work of the therapist results in empowering the family. So first and foremost, it's important to be neutral when you first meet the family. Prematurely taking sides would certainly hamper your ability to be effective later on. Be neutral among the family members. Avoid being caught up in the drama and the stress and the excitement of the presenting problem. It's also important for the counselor not to appear to be aligned with any of the larger systems involved, as we said on the last slide. Even if you are brought in as a consultant for one of these larger systems like the school system, the family is going to find it such a refreshing change from their usual experiences if you can just remain neutral and not appear to be the expert. After an initial time, you will take an actual position depending on the situation. You may find the need to escalate a complementary cycle of more and more help, leading to more and more helplessness. How do you address this? Ask the family's advice. Put them in a position of being equally responsible and capable of fixing their problems. They're the experts on their family, after all. Give that power back to them. Become a negotiator conduit. This is a helpful position to take when a great deal of anger exists between the family and one or more of the larger systems. You will stand between the family and the system and work as a mediator. A therapist or a counselor who's already skilled at mediation or conflict resolution would do well in this role. Another position that you might need to take is that of a coach or an advocate. A coach or an advocate is not neutral. In this situation, you place yourself squarely on the side of the client. This is a role that vocational rehabilitation counselors may be familiar with. In a situation where a client may not know their rights, for instance, education laws regarding serving the disabled populations, the therapist can educate the individual and coach that individual on how to work effectively with the larger systems. How to work with the school board, the principal, what literature to take in with you, what the websites are, how to talk about it, how to get good at talking about it. You could even role play your first meeting with the counselor and the principal. Ideally, the client learns how to keep situations from escalating too. That can be part of the rehearsal and the educating. Don't start screaming. You lose your power in that situation with the school. And so they learn how to effectively communicate for themselves and advocate for themselves as a result of having spent time with you. Now, another position you can take is that of a partnership. A partnership position is useful when the therapist realizes the importance for ongoing long-term cooperation between the family and some of the larger systems they deal with. It's not going to be a short-term relationship. It's going to be ongoing. So the family needs to be put on the same level as all the other experts. If that doesn't exist when you get involved, that's your role. Help form partnerships, not hierarchies. It's crucial that the therapist creates an atmosphere of agreement on a course of treatment among all the parties so that, this partnership can exist. Everybody feels unified and this holistic approach is taken. It's important that no one feels that their role is threatened or that their opinion or expertise is threatened. If they feel threatened, they're not going to want to be in a partnership. So you want to affirm the contributions of all the partners. And the teacher and the physician are no more experts on that child than is the father, but they all do have unique contributions. They all need to learn to listen to one another, really listen, and be partners. The position a therapist takes actually might shift throughout the course of your relationship with the family. However, choosing a position is done in a really planful and calculated way. It doesn't just pop in your head as you're sitting there. You in your case notes that you write after spending time with the family, you plan, you calculate, what is the best way to achieve my main goal? And do you know what the main goal is? The main goal is family empowerment.